Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Selling to the CIO podcast. Look who I had stop by. My co-author of the book, Randy Gaboriault. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, David. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming to the office. This is kind of unique. We've never spitballed like this before. It's been a while since I've spoken to you. So, first off, how things going? How's it being a CIO these days?
It's gotten more challenging
Yep.
as time presses on, but especially I call it sort of in this post-COVID era. So, you're really having to sort of perform on sort of different priorities and different dimensions in the post-COVID era. When I think about the COVID sort of total sort of life cycle of COVID, we had this period what I'd call BC or before COVID, right? And as an industry in healthcare and technology, we had a certain set of priorities we were working towards, but they were relatively kind of on industry sort of timelines, with plans to have XYZ telemedicine percentages by 3 to 5 years out, and we were investing in those sorts of things. But then you go before COVID, then you go into COVID, the COVID period itself, and obviously which changed your trajectory to very, very short term. And there was this, what I sort of described, this singularity of purpose inside organizations. And that was really to be able to sort of scale to support the populations needing care. That was about delivering care outside the four walls, enabling clinicians and patients to sort of interact in the lowest risk ways possible. And now we're in what I call kind of this AC, or this after COVID era. And AC does not look like BC before COVID. It's a different world in terms of thinking. So key priorities that have come out of the world this time, I'll start out with number one is basically cost savings, driving cost out everywhere. And that's not partly, it's pretty significantly driven by the inputs in healthcare. The cost inputs have gone up dramatically through and driven by COVID. So we'll start there with taking cost out of the system.
Yeah, so I've heard it from several folks, including yourself, actually. There's no more nice to haves right now. It seems to be like it's all must haves. And even on my team of reps, it's certainly bigger deals that we've been waiting on purchase orders for, a lot more inspection, getting pushed out, right? So that's what we're seeing. Is that consistent with what you're saying? You said the bigger deals you want to see come across your desk to make sure it's something that is a value to the business and there's immediate ROI. Is that kind of the mindset?
I think you just hit the most important words, which is the immediacy of ROI. We're not interested in things that are, any greater than like 12 months or the fiscal year in terms of value generation, that we can capture that value. I have so many vendors that are reaching out, and they're all still sort of like a chapter behind and haven't gotten this sort of issue around the cost structure that we're driving. I mean, folks are coming in and they think they want to drive additional margin points out of transactions and can't. Even when I begin to start to look at technology solutions, if you can't bring that value in that sort of 12 months or the fiscal year, I don't even have the capacity to care about you. So you better start getting on board in terms of how you're going to support our change journey and generate value much more aggressively than you would have in the past.
Interesting. Are you looking at a consolidation of partners? Are you looking to do more with less partners, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, definitely more with fewer partners.
Okay.
So when you start to think about like healthcare is spent, let's just sort of say like the years kind of leading up into COVID, we were deploying sort of what we'll call a portfolio of tools to sort of solve, the digital front door and, clinician telehealth and all these sorts of interesting things. And those were great to deploy very interesting technologies from that standpoint. But the challenge is now we all have application sprawl. You got a bunch of stuff that effectively by default wasn't built to work together. So now it's much more thinking around building platforms, and on the substrate of platforms is how can I have the data integrated across these platforms? And we don't even think about it necessarily it's just about the integration, the movement of data. We think about shared work, and shared work drives the substrate of what we're trying to accomplish with shared data.
Interesting. It's an interesting, consistent theme all over the place with your peers. And we've seen a little bit of our business slow down as a system integrator, right? Like I said before, it's a lot of touches, stay aggressive, stay after folks like you. Is the annoyance level at all-time high for you these days, or what's
I'm going
your?
to say it hasn't reduced.
Okay.
And I think probably the pressures that SIs are under at the same time are creating just sort of like, we'll call it sort of more or less creative approaches.
Yeah.
But the number of people that are sort of are able to sort of arc beyond sort of like, rep and product to thinking like, you know what, health systems are on a change journey right now. And that change journey involves both the clinical and the business model simultaneously. And it means that we actually have a need for a different set of tools based on the demand for new capabilities. There's very few folks that are able to make that sort of that arc and synthesize that and say, let me put together sort of a thesis as a platform play that we want to come and we want to sort of help you accomplish, on that challenge while still driving cost out, while creating competitive advantage, while investing in novel technologies that are actually advancing both the business model and the clinical delivery model.
Yeah. So back to many discussions we've had before with your peers and you, it seems that folks that are trying to do business with you need to really know the challenges that you're going through and understand the healthcare business, right? Probably on the payer and the provider side of things, specifically for dealing with you, right? You'll know right away if somebody knows, your business.
But that comes back to the central thesis of our book, which is my job is not to educate you.
Right.
You need to understand the swim lane that I'm in, the problems I'm facing, the risks that we have to take, the decisions that have to get made in sort of 30, 60, 90, 180 days. So it all comes down to that. And then the number of folks that still are unprepared and basically trying to sort of surf, or swing in the big leagues to sort of get access to folks as decision makers, they still don't get it. And it's remarkable to me that even after we've gone through, and if you get honest, just listen to sort of analyst calls, that you start to sort of be able to mine this information and put it together. But today, right, I'll still get requests for, hey, can I come in? Want to talk about your project list? Want to talk about challenges you guys are facing? Like, you got to come to me and solve for that problem set. And so ultimately it comes back to why we ultimately felt like it was time to birth a book that sort of tackled these issues.
Well, I appreciate it. You've certainly been a big advocate on educating my sales teams, other sales reps on the right way to do things. And the problem is that a lot of these public companies and OEMs that are, they have a short lifespan sometimes, right? They're trying to get to you. They've just been, assigned Christiana Care Hospital as an account, and they get 6 months to make something happen. And, it takes longer than that these days. It takes a long time to cultivate the relationship. And I tell people this all the time, find a place that understands that this is a journey these days. You're not going to get any quick hits. I mean, they're far and few between. It takes a while to build the relationships, and certainly to build the credibility and the respect of somebody like yourself, who you may never meet them, honestly. And you probably don't want to, because you're worried about the business aspects, not about what kind of storage or what kind of software or what, there's probably very few things that you probably get involved in.
Well, obviously building great teams that are able to sort of make the product recommendations.
Right.
Ultimately you just endorse decisions that have been endorse recommendations. And sometimes you're presented with the data, and the team and myself and the team have to make a decision. But just jumping back to one of the points that you raised, we'll get these calls like, hi, I'm your new account rep.
Yeah.
As if I care. There's
Right.
no change in my relationship because you are now my account rep, that they think that sort of now provides some sort of backstage pass because they're now an assigned account rep to us.
Right.
So I know that you and your guys sort of try to think beyond that, but I'll pose a question back to you. Like, so how are you tackling that with your team members? And you got a spectrum of players in your team.
Yeah. I know, sales technology is not an easy job. You need our stuff, right? There's no doubt about it. Our job is to educate your team on what's going on. And certainly as a system integrator like us, we need to be agnostic to the technology in providing guidance to your team, no matter what the technology is, right? That's our job. But I feel for reps, and my daughter, who's new to the industry, her job is to get meetings with people like you. And it's difficult. It's a hard job, and it's just persistence. And it's finding creative ways Like, an example is Tech Impact that you introduced me to 12 years ago now. It was a foundation that was near and dear to your heart. I got involved. I met a lot of IT folks, and I was able to gain access a different way versus going out and trying to sell them something. They've all certainly become my friends and people I can call now and get a meeting with and ask for advice. And that's kind of what I tell people. Find another way to get to folks like you versus just calling you, because there's no, it's almost impossible. Like you said, you're worried about the business, adding to the bottom line of the hospital. You don't care so much about what spinning disc the company's going to buy.
Well, I mean, a lot of these products, right, they're commoditized,
Right.
right? And so it's really making a decision at some point. Sometimes, it's cost will weigh faster, the cost per XYZ unit that you're purchasing. But I want to jump back to one of the other things that you just talked about, which is you sort of finding that sort of the road less traveled, the alternative pathway in. Just an observation that I had is that you made a genuine investment.
Yeah.
You weren't there to be transactional, which you see other folks who float in and float out. If they don't strike something immediately and disappear, or they show back up under a different brand at some point
Right.
on the horizon. You got to make the real commitment if you're going to sort of tackle the road.
I tell people, go somewhere where they're going to give you at least a year to be able to break into new accounts, because it is an art form, and it is difficult in our business to just pick up a phone and unless you have some emerging technology that everybody has to have, which is far and few between these days. It's making that investment and giving the time to cultivate the relationship. And a lot of companies don't do that, unfortunately, right? They want to hire somebody, they want a quick hit. And if you're not producing, you know what, I'm going to give that account to somebody else, or you're gone, right? And then I see a lot of churn in the industry where I've interviewed people that have 6 jobs in 8 years, and that's difficult as well, because you can't build relationships that way, because you're always going somewhere else and starting fresh. I know you have some sympathy for what we do, and I have sympathy for what your role is, and that's why we got to make every action towards getting that meeting meaningful, right, and worth your while.
There's some shared empathy, yes, understanding.
Yeah.
But one of the things like that, SIs and other players, as you think about understanding what become the capabilities that I'm going to have to be able to deliver to the organization over XYZ period of time. So there's a set of new capabilities, there's emerging capabilities, there's capabilities that effectively, you're sort of decommissioning because the business model is changing. But when I think about that new capability, when is that going to reach critical mass? And when do I need to begin investing in it so that by the time it becomes critical mass, we are experts at delivering that capability?
Yeah.
I spend time sort of thinking backwards from there and then figuring out how to provision, and then how do I get up to speed, and then how do I begin selecting partners to help me develop and deliver that capability as part of my value chain. Once again, few and far between folks they just don't grasp that sort of level of strategic thinking in the sales process.
We've already come up almost upon it, right? So I would like, give us one nugget. What is the best way to get to folks like you, right? Besides some of the things I mentioned, is there anything creative that has been done lately? Any unique events that you've attended? Just one tidbit that we can all learn from, that may help us in our quest to get a meeting with a CIO.
Well, I'll say that there's one thing, and maybe towards what's thinking about earlier stage companies. What I've seen is early stage companies, when they were frothy in their valuations, sort of had a perspective when they showed up in a confidence in their value propositions. What I'm seeing now with some startups is, given the revaluation of these companies and the pressure to drive sales instead of just stratospherically trying to push valuations, under that approach, they're sort of much more gentle in thinking about how do we collaborate with you and bring some skin in the game early on to take on some risk and perhaps fund a pilot. So I'm seeing more of that willingness take place, and that may be scalable with the SI partnering with the technology firm that they're repping. Thinking about that, and that's almost taking yourself and saying, how do I create a platform of partners, not just technology folks, but the partners that can deliver, and bring those and create that value.
Do it as a collective group versus just trying to come at it alone. All right, folks, we're up against it. Thanks for taking the time and joining us. Randy, thanks for stopping by the office. This is a special treat, first format like this. Hopefully we can do more of this, and good luck going into the new year.
Okay, cheers, everybody.
All right, take care. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.